If you are a woman over 50 and you secretly dread Christmas, if the lights and songs and decorations feel less like magic and more like pressure, if the idea of another holiday season makes your chest feel tight instead of warm, this video is for you. Maybe you wake up on Christmas morning and the house is quiet, too quiet, and that silence feels like it is shouting at you. Maybe you are surrounded by people, cooking for everyone, hosting the entire family, and yet you feel like a ghost in your own home, invisible, unacknowledged, taken for granted. Maybe you are in a long relationship that looks fine from the outside, but the emotional distance between you and your partner feels wider than the winter sky. Whatever your specific story is, you know one thing for sure. Christmas does not feel the way it used to, and you are tired of pretending it does. You scroll through social media and see the same movie playing over and over, big smiling families in matching pajamas, couples kissing under Christmas lights, grandchildren tearing open gifts in perfectly decorated living rooms. You see tables overflowing with food and people, captioned with words like blessed, grateful, and together. And as you look at those images, a quiet, cruel voice in your mind whispers, everyone else has the life you were supposed to have. Everyone else is loved. Everyone else belongs. You are the one who somehow failed. You do not say that out loud, of course. You smile, type, Merry Christmas, under other people's photos, maybe even post one of your own. But inside, the ache grows. Psychology has a name for what you are feeling: emotional loneliness and self-abandonment. You are not just alone in a house, you are alone inside yourself. For decades, you were the emotional center of everyone else's Christmas. You were the one who wrapped the gifts, cooked the food, kept the peace, remembered every small detail that made the holiday special for other people. Your value was measured in how well you could make everyone else feel loved, welcome, and comfortable. But now, life has changed. Children grew up, parents are gone, relationships shifted, traditions broke. And somewhere along the way, the person who disappeared the most was you. What nobody told you when you were younger is that Christmas after 50 is a different psychological season. In your 20s and 30s, the holiday is about beginnings. Young marriages, babies, noise, chaos, a future full of possibility. In your 50s, 60s, and beyond, Christmas is often about transitions, adult children dividing their time between families, divorce, widowhood, health issues, fatigue, friendships that faded, loved ones who are no longer at the table. The culture still sells you the same young family fantasy, but your reality has changed completely. That mismatch between the story you were promised and the life you actually have is one of the main reasons Christmas hurts so much now. You may have even started to believe that your loneliness is proof that you are broken, that if you were more lovable, more interesting, more valuable, you would not be spending Christmas like this. That if you had made better choices, you would have a big family gathering, a romantic partner who understands you, a life that matches the greeting card images. This belief is not only false, it is cruel. It turns normal human pain into a moral judgment. It transforms understandable sadness into shame. It convinces you that your feelings are not just difficult, but illegitimate. And that shame is what really isolates you. In reality, what you are experiencing is not a personal failure. It is a collision between cultural myths and psychological truth. The myth says that a good woman is never alone, never tired, never resentful, never grieving. She is always available, always smiling, always grateful, always strong. The psychological truth is that women over 50 carry enormous emotional weight. Years of caretaking, losses, disappointments, invisible labor, unspoken resentments, bodies that do not bounce back the way they used to, relationships that did not become what they were supposed to be. When all of this meets the demand to be happy because it's Christmas, the result is exhaustion, numbness, and a quiet wish that the season would just hurry up and end. There is another layer that makes this even harder. Many women over 50 grew up in families where feelings were not talked about. You were taught to be grateful, to be polite, to be the strong one. Maybe you heard sentences like, "Don't be dramatic," "Other people have it worse," or "We don't talk about that at the table." So even now, when your heart is heavy, a part of you still believes you do not have the right to say, "This is hard for me. I feel lonely. I feel left out. I feel forgotten." Instead of naming your feelings, you stuff them down with food, with busyness, with endless scrolling, with more wine than you actually want. On the outside, you function. On the inside, you are quietly collapsing. Psychologist Walter Riso teaches that one of the most damaging beliefs a woman can internalize is the idea that her value depends on being needed, chosen, and surrounded. Under this belief, quiet seasons become threats. Solitude becomes proof of worthlessness. Broken traditions become evidence that she has somehow failed as a mother, daughter, partner, or human being. But that belief is learned, not natural. You were not born thinking that being alone meant you were defective. You were taught that by a culture that profits from your insecurity and your constant effort to prove yourself worthy of love. This video exists to challenge that programming. Here, you are not going to hear "just be grateful" or "think positive" or "other people have it worse." You are going to hear the psychological truth about why Christmas feels so lonely after 50, and more importantly, how to stop torturing yourself with stories that are not true. You are going to learn what is actually happening in your mind and nervous system during this season, why certain dynamics trigger old wounds, and how to reclaim your emotional freedom without needing a perfect family, a perfect partner, or a perfect life. By the end of this video, you will have 10 specific psychological tools that will change not just how you experience Christmas, but how you relate to yourself, to solitude, to boundaries, and to your own worth. But I need something from you first. If you are a woman over 50 who is tired of feeling invisible, emotionally exhausted, or guilty for wanting peace instead of performance during the holidays, subscribe to this channel right now and turn on the notification bell. This is not just another self-help channel. This is where we talk about the real psychology of life after 50, based on Walter Riso's teachings and decades of research on emotional independence, self-worth, and healthy boundaries. The culture does not know how to value women in this season of life, but we do. Every single week, I bring you content that honors your reality, your struggles, and your right to live without apologizing for existing. So subscribe now, hit that bell, and let's continue this journey together. Now let's go deep. The loneliness you feel at Christmas is not one simple thing. It is not just, "I wish I had more people around." It is much more complex than that. In fact, there are 5 distinct types of loneliness that women over 50 experience during the holidays, and each one has its own psychological root. Most women feel more than one type at the same time, which is why the pain can feel so overwhelming and confusing. You are not just dealing with one problem. You are dealing with layers of unmet needs, unhealed wounds, and unspoken truths that have been building for decades. Understanding which type of loneliness you are experiencing is the first step toward healing it. So as I walk you through all 5, pay close attention. Notice which one makes your chest tighten, which one brings tears to your eyes, which one makes you think, "Yes, that is exactly what I feel, but could never name." The first type of loneliness is physical loneliness. This is the most visible kind. You are literally alone. The house is empty. There is no one else there. Maybe you are divorced and your children are spending Christmas with their other parent. Maybe you are widowed and this is your first, 3rd, or 10th Christmas without your partner. Maybe your adult children live across the country and cannot afford to fly home this year. Maybe you never had children, or you are estranged from family, or your friends are all busy with their own celebrations. Whatever the reason, you wake up on Christmas morning and the silence is deafening. No voices, no laughter, no movement, just you and the empty rooms. Physical loneliness is painful because it is so concrete. You can see the empty chair at the table. You can hear the silence where conversation used to be. You can feel the cold space in the bed where someone used to sleep. And the culture makes this pain worse by constantly showing you images of what you do not have. Every commercial, every movie, every Instagram post reinforces the same message. Christmas is for families, for couples, for people who belong to someone. So when you are alone, your brain interprets that as evidence that you are outside of normal, that you failed somehow, that you are not worthy of the kind of love and connection everyone else seems to have. But here is what Walter Riso would want you to understand about physical loneliness. Being alone is not the same as being lonely. Solitude, when it is chosen and embraced, can be deeply peaceful, restorative, even sacred. The suffering comes not from the fact of being alone, but from the story you tell yourself about being alone. If you believe that being alone at Christmas means you are unlovable, unwanted, forgotten, or defective, then yes, the solitude will be unbearable. But if you can separate the objective reality of being physically alone from the subjective judgment about what that means, the experience changes completely. You can be alone in a room and be at peace. That transformation is what we are working toward in this video. The second type of loneliness is emotional loneliness in a crowd. This one is more insidious because it is invisible to everyone else. From the outside, you look fine. You are not alone. You are surrounded by people. Maybe you are hosting Christmas dinner for 15 relatives. Maybe you are sitting next to your husband of 30 years, watching your grandchildren open presents. Maybe the house is full of noise, laughter, chaos. But inside, you feel profoundly, achingly alone. Because nobody really sees you. Nobody asks how you are doing. Nobody notices that you are exhausted, or sad, or overwhelmed, or barely holding it together. They see the role you play, mother, wife, grandmother, hostess, the woman who makes everything happen, but they do not see the woman underneath. They do not ask what you need. They assume you are fine because you have always been fine. This type of loneliness is especially painful for women over 50 because you have spent decades being the emotional caretaker for everyone else. You are the one who asks how everyone is feeling. You are the one who notices when someone is upset. You are the one who smooths over conflicts, manages personalities, makes sure everyone is comfortable. But who does that for you? Often nobody. Your needs become invisible. Your feelings become irrelevant. And Christmas, which requires enormous emotional labor from you, becomes a performance where you are the stage manager, but never the star. You make the magic happen for everyone else while feeling completely unseen yourself. Walter Riso calls this dynamic codependency. You have trained the people around you to treat you as a function, not a person. They have learned that you will always be available, always accommodating, always self-sacrificing. And they have accepted that arrangement because it benefits them. But the cost to you is staggering. You are emotionally abandoned in your own life. And the worst part is, you participated in creating this pattern. You taught people not to see you by never demanding to be seen. You rewarded them for ignoring your needs by continuing to meet theirs no matter what. So breaking this cycle does not just require asking to be seen. It requires stopping the behaviors that made your invisibility possible in the first place. The third type of loneliness is loneliness inside a cold relationship. You are not divorced. You are not widowed. You have a partner. You share a house, maybe a bed, maybe decades of history. But emotionally, you are strangers. He sits in one room watching television. You sit in another room scrolling your phone. You have stopped talking about anything real. You have stopped touching in any meaningful way. You have stopped seeing each other as people. Christmas comes, and you go through the motions together. You exchange gifts that feel obligatory. You attend family gatherings and smile for photos. But when the door closes at night, there is nothing there. No warmth, no intimacy, no connection. Just two people occupying the same space, pretending everything is fine. This loneliness is brutal because you cannot even name it without sounding ungrateful. After all, you have a partner, You should be thankful. Other women would love to have what you have. So you silence yourself. You tell yourself it is normal for relationships to become stale after decades. That expecting emotional intimacy at this stage is naive or selfish. But deep down, you know this is not intimacy. This is coexistence at best, and emotional imprisonment at worst. You are living with someone and feeling utterly alone. And that contradiction creates a special kind of madness. Walter Riso teaches that this type of loneliness often involves deep betrayal. Not necessarily infidelity, though sometimes that is part of it. But betrayal of the promise that you would grow old together with connection, not just proximity. Betrayal of your own needs, because you have convinced yourself that staying in a cold relationship is better than being physically alone. But is it? Is loneliness inside a marriage really less painful than loneliness in an empty house? For many women, it is actually worse. Because at least when you are physically alone, you are not pretending. You are not performing a connection that does not exist. You are not lying to yourself every single day about the state of your life. I am going to pause here for a moment because I need to know you are still with me. If what I just described resonates with you, if you recognize yourself in one of those 3 types of loneliness, type yes in the comments right now. Just type yes. You do not have to explain. You do not have to tell your story unless you want to. Just type yes so I know this is landing. And more importantly, so you can see how many other women type yes too. Because one of the most isolating parts of loneliness is believing you are the only one who feels this way. You are not. Thousands of women are watching this video right now, feeling exactly what you feel. So type yes, and let's keep going together. The 4th type of loneliness is grief loneliness. This is the loneliness that comes after loss. Someone you love deeply is gone. A parent, a sibling, a partner, a best friend, maybe even a child. And this Christmas is the first one without them, or the 2nd or the 10th. Their absence is everywhere. You see it in the empty chair at the table. You feel it in the traditions you used to share. You hear it in the silence where their voice used to be. You smell it in the food they used to cook. Every single sensory detail of Christmas reminds you that they are not here anymore. And that reminder is not abstract. It is visceral. It is a punch to the gut every time you turn around, expecting to see them, and they are not there. Grief loneliness is complicated because the culture has very rigid expectations about how long you are allowed to grieve. If it has been a year, people expect you to be better. If it has been 5 years, they expect you to be over it. They say things like, they would want you to be happy, or you need to move on, or at least you had all those years together. These statements, no matter how well-intentioned, are emotionally violent. Because grief does not follow a calendar. Grief does not care that it has been 5 years. Grief does not disappear just because other people are uncomfortable witnessing it. And holidays, especially Christmas, reactivate grief in ways that nothing else does. Because Christmas is built on repetition. It is about doing the same rituals year after year, baking the same cookies, singing the same songs, telling the same stories, sitting in the same seats. So when someone is missing from those rituals, their absence is not theoretical. It is concrete. It is the pie they used to bake that nobody else makes the same way. It is the joke they used to tell every single year. It is the way they used to hug you when you walked in the door. You are not just missing the person. You are missing the entire version of Christmas that died when they died. Walter Riso teaches that unresolved grief does not disappear. It goes underground. It becomes chronic sadness. It becomes emotional numbness. It becomes the belief that joy is no longer available to you. It becomes the conviction that the best parts of your life are over and all that is left is endurance. So part of healing grief loneliness is giving yourself radical, explicit permission to grieve without apologizing, without rushing, without pretending you are fine when you are not. You are allowed to say out loud, "This hurts. I miss them. Christmas is hard without them. I do not care if it has been 5 years or 10 years or 20 years. I am allowed to feel what I feel. And anyone who cannot handle my grief does not have to be part of my Christmas. Let me tell you about a woman named Margaret. She is 68. Her husband died 7 years ago. For the first few years, people were understanding. They checked on her. They invited her places. They said his name and shared memories. But by year 4, the invitations slowed down. By year 6, people stopped mentioning him at all. And by year 7, when Margaret said she was struggling with Christmas, her own daughter said, "Mom, it has been 7 years. You have to move on. Dad would want you to be happy." Margaret told me that sentence broke something inside her. Not because her daughter was cruel, but because Margaret realized she had been abandoned in her grief. She was expected to perform recovery, whether she felt it or not. So that Christmas, Margaret did something radical. She did not go to her daughter's house. She stayed home. She lit a candle for her husband. She looked at old photos. She cried. She talked to him out loud. She let herself feel everything without apologizing. And for the first time in years, she felt relief. Not happiness. Relief. Because she had stopped abandoning herself. That is what unhealed grief does. It forces you to choose between being honest and being accepted. And most women choose acceptance, which means they bury the grief deeper and deeper until they do not even recognize themselves anymore. But healing requires the opposite choice. It requires choosing honesty, even when honesty makes other people uncomfortable. It requires saying, "I am not okay, and I am not going to pretend I am." The fifth and final type of loneliness is existential loneliness. This is the loneliness of disconnection from yourself. You are not necessarily physically alone. You might be surrounded by people, but you feel lost. You do not recognize the woman in the mirror. You do not know what you want anymore. You do not know who you are outside of the roles you have played for 50 years: mother, wife, daughter, employee, caregiver, peacekeeper. For decades, you were what other people needed you to be. And now, whether because those roles have ended or because you are finally too exhausted to keep performing them, you realize you have no idea who you actually are underneath. Christmas amplifies this existential loneliness because the holiday forces you to confront the question, what do I actually want? And you realize you do not know. You have been living on autopilot for so long, prioritizing everyone else's desires, that your own desires have completely disappeared. Someone asks, "What do you want to do for Christmas?" And you freeze. You genuinely do not know. Your first instinct is to ask what everyone else wants and then arrange your life around that. But if you are forced to answer for yourself, there is nothing there. Just a blank space where your preferences used to be. This is what Walter Riso calls self-abandonment. You abandoned yourself years ago, maybe decades ago. You stopped listening to your own voice. You stopped honoring your own needs. You stopped treating yourself like a person whose desires matter. You became a function for other people. The woman who makes things happen. The woman who holds everything together. The woman who sacrifices so everyone else can be comfortable. And in the process of becoming that function, you lost yourself. You do not know what you like anymore. You do not know what brings you joy. You do not know what you believe or what you value or what you would choose if you were actually free to choose. And now, at 50, 60, 70, you feel alone even when you are with yourself. Because the self you are with is a stranger. You do not know her. You do not trust her. You do not even like her very much. That is existential loneliness. It is not loneliness for other people. It is loneliness for yourself. You are homesick for a version of you that you have not been in contact with for so long, you are not sure she even exists anymore. Let me tell you about Patricia. She is 59. 3 years ago, her last child moved out. Her husband works long hours. Suddenly, Patricia had time she had not had in 30 years, and she had no idea what to do with it. She would sit on the couch and think, what do I want to do right now? And nothing would come. No hobbies, no interests, no desires, just emptiness. She realized she had spent 30 years being a mother and a wife, and she had no idea who Patricia actually was underneath those roles. That Christmas, someone asked her what she wanted for a gift. And Patricia, for the first time in her life, could not answer. Not because she was being polite, but because she genuinely did not know. She had spent so many years asking everyone else what they wanted, and then providing it, that she had completely lost touch with her own wants. She started crying in the middle of the store, not because she was sad about a gift, but because she realized she had erased herself so thoroughly that she did not even exist anymore as a person with preferences. Patricia came to therapy and said, "I feel like I am alone inside my own body, like I am living with a stranger, and that stranger is me." That is existential loneliness. And it is one of the most painful experiences a human being can have. Because you cannot escape it. You carry it everywhere. You are alone with yourself every single second of every single day. And if you do not know who that self is, if you do not have a relationship with that self, if you have abandoned that self for decades, then you are living in a state of constant internal isolation. So now you understand all 5 types of loneliness. Physical loneliness, being alone in an empty house. Emotional loneliness in a crowd, being surrounded but unseen. Loneliness in a cold relationship, being with someone but emotionally abandoned. Grief, loneliness, missing someone who is gone. Existential loneliness, being disconnected from yourself. Most women experience more than one of these at the same time, which is why the pain can feel so overwhelming during Christmas. You are not dealing with one problem. You are dealing with layers of unmet needs and unhealed wounds that have been accumulating for years. And here is what makes it even harder. The culture does not give you permission to name any of this. You are supposed to be grateful. You are supposed to focus on what you have, not what you have lost. You are supposed to smile and say you are blessed and post happy photos and pretend everything is fine. So you do. You perform gratitude while your heart is breaking. You perform happiness while your soul is screaming. And that performance, that constant split between what you show and what you feel, creates a level of exhaustion that is hard to describe to anyone who has not lived it. But you are not performing anymore. Not here. Not in this space. Here, you get to tell the truth. You get to say, "Christmas is hard. I feel lonely. I feel invisible. I feel forgotten. I feel lost. I feel tired. I feel grief. I feel anger. I feel resentment. I feel all of it. And I am allowed to feel all of it without being told I am ungrateful or negative or broken." Because feelings are not moral judgments. They are information. They are signals from your nervous system telling you that something needs attention. And for too long, you have been ignoring those signals because you were taught that your feelings do not matter as much as other people's comfort. That ends now. Now that you understand the 5 types of loneliness, we need to talk about why Christmas makes all of this so much worse. Why does a holiday that is supposed to be about peace, joy, and connection feel like emotional warfare? Why does a season that promises warmth and belonging leave you feeling more isolated than any other time of year? There are 3 specific psychological dynamics at play here, and understanding them will help you stop blaming yourself for feelings that are actually completely rational responses to impossible cultural demands. The first dynamic is the pressure to perform happiness. Christmas is not presented to you as a neutral time. It is presented as a mandate. You are supposed to be happy. You are supposed to be grateful. You are supposed to be festive, generous, warm, and full of Christmas spirit. If you are not, if you admit that you are struggling or sad or lonely, people look at you like something is wrong with you. They say things like, "But it's Christmas. How can you be sad at Christmas?" As if the date on the calendar has the power to erase grief, loneliness, exhaustion, or decades of unresolved pain. This cultural demand to perform happiness is psychologically violent because it does not allow you to feel what you actually feel. It forces you to choose between authenticity and acceptance. If you are authentic, If you admit that Christmas is hard, people will distance themselves from you. They will call you negative, ungrateful, a downer. They will stop inviting you to things because you are ruining the mood. So you learn very quickly that the only acceptable response to Christmas is performance. You smile, you say you are blessed, you post the happy photo, you say all the right things, but inside you are collapsing. Walter Riso teaches that this split between your internal reality and your external performance creates what psychologists call cognitive dissonance. Your mind knows one thing, but your behavior shows another. And that dissonance is exhausting. It burns through your energy faster than any physical labor ever could, because you are not just managing your own feelings. You are managing how other people perceive your feelings. You are doing emotional labor for yourself and emotional labor for everyone around you. And all of that labor happens invisibly, which means nobody thanks you for it, nobody acknowledges it, and nobody gives you permission to stop. So you keep performing, you keep pretending. And with every performance, you abandon yourself a little bit more. You send yourself the message that your real feelings are not acceptable, that your truth is too much, that you have to edit yourself, censor yourself, shrink yourself in order to be tolerated. And after 50 years of that message, after decades of abandoning yourself to keep other people comfortable, you wake up one day and realize you do not even know who you are anymore. Because the only version of you that has been allowed to exist is the performed version. The real you has been buried so deep, you are not sure she is still alive. The second dynamic is comparison. Christmas is comparison season. It is the time of year when everyone posts their highlight reel, and you, sitting alone or sitting in a difficult situation, compare your behind-the-scenes reality to everyone else's edited, filtered, curated performance. You scroll through social media and see photos of multi-generational families laughing around a beautifully set table. You see couples holding hands in front of a Christmas tree. You see women your age surrounded by grandchildren. You see friends traveling together, celebrating together, clearly belonging to each other in ways that you do not belong to anyone. And your brain, which is wired to assess social belonging as a survival mechanism, interprets those images as evidence. Evidence that everyone else has figured out how to do life correctly. Evidence that everyone else is loved, chosen, valued. Evidence that you are the only one struggling. Evidence that something is fundamentally wrong with you. Because if other people can have big, happy families and you cannot, if other people can have loving partners and you cannot, if other people can feel joyful at Christmas and you cannot, then the problem must be you. You must be defective, unlovable, broken. But that conclusion is based on a lie. The lie is that what you see on social media is real. Most of those photos are not documentation of reality. They are advertisements for a life people wish they had. Behind many of those smiling family photos are years of resentment, unspoken conflict, emotional distance, people who barely speak to each other the other 364 days of the year, but show up for the photo because that is what you are supposed to do. Behind many of those romantic couple photos are cold marriages, infidelity, quiet desperation, people staying together because leaving feels too hard, or too expensive, or too shameful. You are comparing your internal experience, which includes all the mess, all the pain, all the loneliness, to everyone else's external performance, which includes only what they want you to see. And that comparison is destroying you, because it is not a fair comparison. You are comparing truth to fiction, reality to fantasy, your whole story to their edited highlight, and then you are using that comparison to conclude that you are less than, when in reality, you are just more honest. The third dynamic is unmet expectations. You had expectations about what your life would look like at this age. Maybe you thought you would have a big extended family that gathered every Christmas. Maybe you thought you would be in a long, loving marriage full of intimacy and connection. Maybe you thought your adult children would prioritize spending Christmas with you. Maybe you thought you would have a close group of friends who would never let you spend the holidays alone. Maybe you thought your parents would still be here. Maybe you thought you would feel more settled, more content, more at peace by now. But reality does not match those expectations. Your adult children have their own families now, their own traditions, their own priorities. Your marriage is distant or over. Your parents are gone. Your friends moved away or drifted into their own lives. The family you thought you would have does not exist. The life you thought you would be living did not happen. And Christmas becomes a painful, unavoidable confrontation with that gap. The gap between what you thought your life would be and what it actually is. Between who you thought you would become and who you actually are. Between the future you imagined at 25 and the reality you are living at 55, 65, 75. Walter Riso teaches that unmet expectations are one of the deepest sources of chronic suffering. Because as long as you hold on to the belief that life should have turned out differently, reality will always feel like failure. Every Christmas will feel like evidence that you did something wrong, that you made bad choices, that you are being punished. And that belief will keep you trapped in resentment, regret, and a constant low-grade grief for the life you never had. The healing does not come from making reality match your expectations. That is impossible. The past is fixed. The choices are made. The people are gone. You cannot go back and create the life you thought you would have. The healing comes from releasing the expectation entirely, from accepting what is without judgment, from recognizing that your life does not have to look like the life you imagined in order to be valuable, meaningful, or worth living. From understanding that a quiet Christmas, a small Christmas, a different Christmas is not a failed Christmas. It is just your Christmas. And your Christmas is allowed to look however it looks. This is hard. This is one of the hardest psychological shifts a person can make, because it requires grieving the life you thought you would have. It requires letting go of the fantasy. It requires accepting that some doors are closed and will never open again. It requires looking at your actual life, with all its limitations and losses and disappointments, and saying, "This is what I have. This is where I am. And I am going to stop torturing myself for not being somewhere else." But when you make that shift, when you stop fighting reality and start accepting it, something extraordinary happens. The constant background noise of failure and inadequacy starts to quiet down. You stop spending energy wishing things were different and start having energy to work with what actually is. You stop comparing your December to someone else's highlight reel and start noticing what is actually present in your own life. And you start to realize that peace does not come from having the perfect Christmas. It comes from releasing the demand that Christmas be perfect. Now let's go even deeper. Because underneath the loneliness, underneath the pressure to perform, underneath the comparison and the unmet expectations, there are specific beliefs that are actively torturing you. These are not conscious thoughts. You probably do not walk around saying these sentences out loud, but they are running in the background of your mind like a constant loop, shaping how you interpret everything that happens during Christmas. And until you identify these beliefs and challenge them directly, they will continue to poison your experience year after year. The first toxic belief is this: if I am alone at Christmas, it means I am unlovable. This belief is so deeply embedded in women over 50 that most do not even recognize it as a belief. It feels like truth. It feels like fact. You look around and see that you are alone, or that you are less surrounded than other people, and your brain automatically concludes, "This is proof that I am not worthy of love. If I were more attractive, more interesting, more valuable, more lovable, I would not be in this situation. Other women have families and partners and full tables. I do not. Therefore, something is fundamentally wrong with me." But this belief is not truth. It is internalized cultural propaganda. You were raised in a culture that taught you, explicitly and implicitly, that a woman's value is determined by whether she is chosen, by whether a man wants her, by whether she can attract and keep relationships, by whether she is surrounded by people who need her. Under that belief system, being alone is not just a circumstance. It is a moral failure. It is evidence of inadequacy. It is proof that you are defective. Walter Riso has spent decades dismantling this belief in his work. He teaches that your worth as a human being is intrinsic. It is not earned through achievement. It is not granted by other people's approval. It is not determined by your relationship status or how many people show up to your Christmas dinner. You have value simply because you exist. Simply because you are a human being with dignity, with the capacity for thought, for feeling, for growth. That value cannot be taken away by circumstances. It cannot be diminished by solitude. It cannot be revoked because someone chose not to stay in your life. But if you have been carrying the belief that being alone means being unlovable for 50 years, you cannot just decide to stop believing it. You have to actively dismantle it. You have to catch the thought every single time it appears and challenge it. When your mind whispers, "You are alone because you are not good enough," you have to answer back, "That is not true. I am alone because of a combination of circumstances, choices, losses, and life transitions. My aloneness says nothing about my worth." And you have to do that 1,000 times until your brain starts to believe the new story more than the old one. The second toxic belief is this: a good Christmas requires a big family, a romantic partner, and a table full of people. This belief is reinforced everywhere you look, every movie, every commercial, every holiday card, every Instagram post. The cultural script is clear. Christmas is for families. If you do not have the big family gathering, you are doing Christmas wrong. If you do not have a romantic partner to kiss under the mistletoe, you are missing the point. If your table is not overflowing with food and people and laughter, you have failed at the holiday. But this script is fiction. It is a story sold to you by a culture that profits from your insecurity. The greeting card companies, the retail stores, the media, they all benefit when you believe that you need to buy more, do more, be more in order to have a valid Christmas. They benefit when you feel inadequate, when you feel like your small, quiet, simple Christmas is not enough. Because that inadequacy drives consumption. It drives you to spend money, to perform, to exhaust yourself trying to create a Christmas that matches the fantasy they sold you. But the truth is this: a good Christmas is any Christmas where you are not abandoning yourself. A good Christmas is any Christmas where you are honoring your actual feelings instead of performing fake ones. A good Christmas is any Christmas where you are protecting your peace instead of sacrificing it. A good Christmas can be quiet. It can be small. It can be just you and one other person. It can be you alone with a book and a cup of tea. It can be you volunteering somewhere. It can be you skipping the holiday entirely and treating December 25th like any other day. None of those options are wrong. They are just different. And different is not the same as failed. The third toxic belief is this: if I set boundaries or say no during the holidays, I am selfish and cruel. This belief keeps women trapped in situations that are slowly destroying them. You say yes to hosting even though you are exhausted. You say yes to attending gatherings with people who disrespect you. You say yes to cooking for 15 people even though nobody offers to help. You say yes to pretending you are fine even though you are falling apart inside. And you do all of this because you believe that saying no would make you a bad person. That protecting yourself is the same as hurting others. That boundaries are selfish. But Walter Riso teaches the exact opposite. He teaches that boundaries are not cruelty. Boundaries are self-respect. And self-respect is not optional if you want emotional health. Every time you say yes when your body, your heart, your nervous system is screaming no, you are committing an act of self-betrayal. You are telling yourself that other people's comfort matters more than your survival. You are teaching the people around you that your needs are negotiable, that your limits do not exist, that they can take and take and take from you without consequence. And here is what happens over time. The people in your life start to believe that too. They start to treat you like a function instead of a person. They start to assume you will always be available, always accommodating, always self-sacrificing. And when you finally try to set a boundary, when you finally say, "I cannot do this anymore," they react with shock, anger, guilt-tripping, because you trained them to expect unlimited access to you. You taught them that your no does not mean no. And now, when you try to reclaim yourself, it feels to them like you are doing something wrong. But you are not doing something wrong. You are doing something necessary. You are stopping a pattern that was killing you. You are reclaiming your right to exist as a person with limits, with needs, with a nervous system that deserves protection. And if the people in your life cannot handle that, if they respond to your boundaries with punishment or rejection, that tells you everything you need to know about the relationship. It was never about you as a person. It was about you as a function. And losing a functional relationship is not actually loss. It is clarity. The fourth toxic belief is this: I should be grateful for what I have and stop complaining. This belief silences women more effectively than almost anything else. Because the moment you start to express pain, loneliness, or dissatisfaction, someone will say, "At least you have your health," or "At least you are not homeless," or "Other people have it so much worse," and you will feel ashamed. You will feel like your pain is illegitimate. You will shut down, stuff your feelings back inside, and return to the performance of gratitude. But gratitude and honesty are not opposites. You can be grateful for the things you have and still acknowledge the things that hurt. You can appreciate your health and still feel lonely. You can recognize that other people suffer more and still honor your own suffering. Pain is not a competition. Your loneliness does not become invalid just because someone else is more alone. Your grief does not disappear just because someone else lost more. Comparative suffering is a trap that keeps you silent, keeps you stuck, keeps you unable to seek help or comfort or change. Walter Riso would say that toxic gratitude, gratitude that is used to silence legitimate pain, is not actually gratitude. It is emotional bypass. It is a way of avoiding uncomfortable feelings by pretending they do not exist or do not matter. Real gratitude coexists with real pain. You can say, "I am grateful for my home, and I am also devastated by my loneliness." Both are true, both are allowed, and naming both is not complaining. It is honesty. Now I need to pause and ask you something. Out of those 4 toxic beliefs I just named, which one is loudest in your mind? Which one do you recognize as the story that tortures you the most? I want you to go to the comments right now and type a number. Type 1 if the belief "I am alone because I am unlovable" is your loudest struggle. Type 2 if it is "Christmas has to look a certain way to be valid." Type 3 if it is "Setting boundaries makes me selfish." Type 4 if it is "I should just be grateful and stop feeling pain." Just type the number. You do not have to explain unless you want to, but naming which belief controls you is the first step toward breaking its power. So pause right now. Type your number. Look at the other comments and see how many women type the same number. You are not alone in this, and recognizing that is part of the healing. Now type your number and let's continue. Now we need to go deeper into the psychology of why these patterns exist in the first place. Because the loneliness you feel at Christmas, the toxic beliefs that torture you, the inability to set boundaries, the constant self-abandonment, none of this appeared out of nowhere. These patterns have roots. Deep roots that were planted decades ago, often in childhood, and have been growing quietly underneath your conscious awareness ever since. Understanding where these roots come from does not erase the pain, but it does give you power. Because once you see the pattern clearly, you can start to change it. The first root is attachment wounds. Walter Riso, drawing heavily on attachment theory, explains that the way you experienced love and connection in your earliest years shapes how you experience love and connection for the rest of your life. If you grew up with parents or caregivers who were consistently warm, attuned, emotionally available, and reliable, you likely developed what psychologists call secure attachment. You learned that people can be trusted, that love is stable, that your needs matter, that you are worthy of care without having to earn it. But if you grew up with inconsistent love, with conditional approval, with caregivers who were sometimes there and sometimes not, who loved you when you were good and withdrew when you were not, you likely developed anxious attachment. You learned that love is unreliable, that people leave, that you have to work very hard, perform very well, and never make mistakes in order to keep people from abandoning you. You learned that your needs are too much, that asking for care is risky, that the safest strategy is to become whatever other people need you to be so they will not leave. And if you grew up with caregivers who were emotionally absent, neglectful, or abusive, you likely developed avoidant attachment or disorganized attachment. You learned that people are dangerous, that needing others makes you weak, that the only person you can rely on is yourself. You learned to shut down your feelings, to disconnect from your needs, to survive by not needing anything from anyone. Most women over 50 who struggle with loneliness during the holidays have some version of anxious attachment. They learned early that love is conditional and unreliable, so they spent their entire adult lives trying to earn love by being indispensable, by being the caretaker, by being the one who never asks for anything and always gives everything, by making themselves so useful, so necessary, so self-sacrificing that surely no one would ever leave. But here is the cruel irony. That strategy does not create secure love. It creates codependency. It creates relationships where people stay, not because they genuinely see you and value you, but because they benefit from your endless service. And then, when life changes, when children grow up, when parents die, when relationships end, when your usefulness is no longer needed in the same way, those relationships dissolve or become distant, and you are left alone, convinced that you were not good enough, not valuable enough, not lovable enough. But that conclusion is wrong. The problem was never your worth. The problem was that you built relationships on a foundation of performance and self-sacrifice, instead of on a foundation of genuine mutual respect and authentic connection. The second root is codependency. Codependency is a term that gets used loosely, but it has a specific psychological meaning. Codependency means that your sense of worth, your emotional stability, and your identity are dependent on other people. You feel okay when other people are okay. You feel valuable when other people need you. You feel like you exist when you are taking care of someone else. But when you are alone, when no one needs you, when you are not actively serving someone else's needs, you feel empty, lost, purposeless, like you do not even exist. Walter Riso teaches that codependency is not love. It looks like love. It feels like love to the person who benefits from it. But it is not love. It is self-abandonment dressed up as devotion. Because in a codependent dynamic, you are not actually in relationship with the other person. You are in relationship with their need for you. You are not seen as a whole person with your own needs, desires, limits, and complexity. You are seen as a function. The woman who makes things easier. The woman who absorbs everyone else's discomfort so they do not have to feel it. The woman who sacrifices herself so everyone else can be comfortable. And the most painful part of codependency is that the people who benefit from it often have no idea how much it costs you. They genuinely believe you are fine. They believe you love doing all of this. They believe you do not have needs because you never express them. So they keep taking and taking and taking, not out of malice, but out of ignorance. Because you taught them that you are fine. You taught them that your needs do not exist. You taught them that taking from you has no consequences. Christmas amplifies codependency because the holiday is built on the expectation that women will perform endless emotional labor. You are expected to cook, clean, decorate, shop, wrap, host, organize, mediate conflicts, manage everyone's feelings, and make sure everyone has a magical experience. And you do it. You do it even when you are exhausted, even when you are lonely, even when no one asks if you need help. even when no one thanks you. You do it because your worth feels tied to how well you perform this role. And when Christmas is over and you are alone with yourself, you feel hollow, because you gave everything away and there is nothing left. The third root is fear of abandonment. This fear is the engine that drives both anxious attachment and codependency. At the core, underneath all the people-pleasing, all the self-sacrifice, all the inability to set boundaries, there is one foundational terror. If I stop performing, if I stop being useful, if I stop being whatever other people need me to be, they will leave. And if they leave, I will be alone. And if I am alone, I will not survive. This fear is not logical. It is primal. It lives in the oldest part of your brain, the part that remembers when being abandoned by the tribe meant death. So even though you are an adult now, even though being alone does not actually mean you will die, your nervous system still responds to the threat of abandonment as if it is a life or death situation. That is why setting boundaries feels so terrifying. That is why saying no feels impossible. That is why even thinking about prioritizing your own needs triggers panic. Because your nervous system interprets those actions as behaviors that will lead to abandonment. And abandonment, to your nervous system, equals death. Walter Riso teaches that healing this fear requires two things. First, you have to prove to yourself through lived experience that you can survive alone. That solitude is not death. That you are capable, resourceful, strong enough to take care of yourself without needing someone else to complete you or validate you or give you permission to exist. Second, you have to grieve the relationships that were never actually safe. The relationships where love was conditional, where connection required self-erasure, where belonging meant abandoning yourself. You have to let yourself feel the anger, the sadness, the betrayal of realizing that many of the relationships you sacrificed yourself for were never truly reciprocal. This grief is enormous. For many women, it feels like grieving your entire life. Because if the relationships were not real, if the love was conditional, if you were valued only for what you provided and not for who you are, then what was it all for? What were the last 30, 40, 50 years of self-sacrifice actually about? This is one of the most painful reckonings a woman over 50 can face. And it often happens during the holidays, when the performance becomes unsustainable and the loneliness becomes undeniable. But here is what is on the other side of that grief. Freedom. The freedom to stop performing. The freedom to exist as you actually are instead of as whoever other people need you to be. The freedom to set boundaries without terror. The freedom to say no without guilt. The freedom to choose solitude over bad company. The freedom to build new relationships, real relationships, based on authenticity instead of performance. That freedom is worth the grief. That freedom is worth the reckoning. That freedom is worth walking through the fire of facing the truth about your past so you can finally live differently in your present. Now let's talk about the most damaging pattern of all, the belief that your value comes from how much you sacrifice. This is the pattern that has probably shaped your entire adult life. You learned, somewhere along the way, that good women sacrifice. Good women put everyone else first. Good women do not ask for what they need. Good women smile through pain. Good women make sure everyone else is comfortable, even if it means they are quietly falling apart. You learn that self-sacrifice equals virtue, that the more you give up, the more valuable you are, that suffering in silence is noble. But Walter Riso would tell you something radical. Self-sacrifice is not love. It is self-destruction. When you chronically sacrifice your needs, your boundaries, your peace, your health, your truth for other people, you are not being virtuous. You are being violent toward yourself. You are teaching yourself that you do not matter, that your needs are less important than everyone else's, that your pain is irrelevant, that your existence is optional. And when you send yourself that message hundreds of times a year for 50 years, you do not end up noble and virtuous. You end up empty, resentful, and unable to recognize yourself. The problem is that the culture rewards women for self-sacrifice. People praise you for it. They say, "You are so selfless. You are such a good mother. You are so strong. I do not know how you do it all." And those compliments feel good in the moment. They feel like proof that you are valuable, but they are actually reinforcing the pattern that is killing you. Because every time someone praises you for sacrificing yourself, you learn that self-sacrifice is the path to approval. So you sacrifice more, you give more, you erase yourself more. And the praise continues, and so does the erasure, until one day you wake up and realize there is nothing left of you. Christmas is the peak season for self-sacrifice. You cook meals nobody helps with. You buy gifts nobody thanks you for. You decorate the house alone. You mediate family conflicts. You smile through exhaustion. You pretend to be fine when you are not. You do all of this because you believe that if you do not, Christmas will not happen. The magic will not exist. People will be disappointed, and their disappointment will be your fault. So you sacrifice yourself to prevent that outcome. But here is the truth. You are not actually preventing their disappointment. You are just preventing them from ever having to take responsibility for creating their own joy. When you make yourself the source of everyone else's happiness, you trap yourself and you infantilize them. You trap yourself because your worth becomes dependent on their satisfaction, which you can never fully control. And you infantilize them because they never have to learn how to create meaningful experiences for themselves. They become dependent on you to make Christmas happen. And then, when you are too tired or too old or too sick to keep performing that role, they do not know what to do. And instead of stepping up, instead of taking responsibility, they blame you for not being who you used to be. That is the brutal endpoint of chronic self-sacrifice. The people you sacrificed yourself for do not thank you. They resent you for stopping. Now let's talk about guilt. Guilt is the weapon that keeps self-sacrifice in place. Every time you think about setting a boundary, guilt appears. Every time you think about saying no, guilt tells you that you are being selfish. Every time you think about prioritizing your own needs, guilt convinces you that you are hurting other people. Guilt is so deeply embedded in women over 50 that it operates automatically. You do not even question it. It just shows up and you obey. But Walter Riso teaches that not all guilt is legitimate. There is healthy guilt, which happens when you have actually done something wrong, when you have violated your own values or hurt someone unnecessarily. Healthy guilt motivates repair. It helps you apologize, make amends, and do better. But then there is toxic guilt, which happens when you have done nothing wrong, but you still feel like you have. Toxic guilt comes from internalized beliefs that your needs are bad, that protecting yourself is selfish, that existing as a person with limits is a moral failure. Most of the guilt women over 50 feel during the holidays is toxic guilt. You feel guilty for not hosting even though hosting would exhaust you. You feel guilty for not attending a gathering even though the gathering would be emotionally damaging. You feel guilty for feeling sad even though sadness is a legitimate human emotion. You feel guilty for wanting time alone even though solitude is a basic human need. None of these feelings are based on actual wrongdoing. They are based on the false belief that you owe other people unlimited access to your time, energy, and emotional labor. Toxic guilt keeps you trapped in patterns that harm you. It prevents you from setting boundaries. It prevents you from saying no. It prevents you from choosing your own well-being. And the people who benefit from your guilt, whether they realize it or not, reinforce it. They say things like, "If you really loved me, you would come," or "You are going to miss out on family," or "I guess we just are not important to you." These statements are emotional manipulation. They weaponize your guilt to force compliance. And if you have spent your whole life believing that guilt is a reliable moral signal, you will comply. You will override your own needs and do what they want, all while resenting them and hating yourself. The antidote to toxic guilt is radical self-permission. You have to give yourself explicit, conscious permission to prioritize your own well-being without guilt. You have to practice saying, out loud or in writing, statements like, I am allowed to say no. I am allowed to protect my peace. I am allowed to skip gatherings that harm me. I am allowed to rest. I am allowed to feel sad. I am allowed to grieve. I am allowed to want things. I am allowed to exist as a person with needs and limits. These statements will feel uncomfortable at first. They will feel selfish, but that discomfort is not truth. It is just unfamiliarity. You are not used to giving yourself permission, so practice, over and over, until permission starts to feel like a right instead of a sin. Now let's talk about shame. Shame is different from guilt. Guilt says, I did something bad. Shame says, I am bad. Guilt is about behavior. Shame is about identity. And shame is what happens when you internalize the belief that your loneliness, your sadness, your struggle is proof that you are fundamentally defective. Shame is the voice that says, other women have happy families. You do not. That means something is wrong with you. Shame is what makes you hide, what makes you lie, what makes you perform happiness even when you are dying inside. Walter Riso teaches that shame is one of the most toxic emotions a human being can carry because it attacks your sense of self. It does not just say you made a mistake. It says you are a mistake. And when you believe that, when you carry that belief into every interaction, every holiday, every quiet moment alone, you cannot experience peace. Because peace requires self-acceptance, and shame makes self-acceptance impossible. Women over 50 carry enormous amounts of shame. Shame about aging, shame about bodies that do not look like they used to, shame about being single or divorced or widowed, shame about estranged relationships with adult children, shame about not being needed anymore, shame about feeling invisible, shame about wanting things, shame about being lonely. And Christmas, with all its images of perfect families and perfect lives, activates every single one of those shame wounds. The antidote to shame is self-compassion. Self-compassion is not self-pity. It is not feeling sorry for yourself. It is treating yourself with the same kindness, the same understanding, the same gentleness you would offer to a dear friend who is struggling. It is recognizing that you are human, that you are imperfect, that you have limits, that you have needs, that life has been hard, and that none of that makes you defective. It makes you human. Self-compassion means catching the shame voice when it appears and answering it with truth. When shame says, you are alone because you are unlovable, self-compassion says, you are alone because of circumstances, losses, and life transitions. Your aloneness says nothing about your worth. When shame says, you should be over this by now, self-compassion says, grief has its own timeline. You are allowed to feel what you feel. When shame says, everyone else has it together except you, self-compassion says, you are comparing your inside to everyone else's outside. That is not fair, and it is not true. Practicing self-compassion during Christmas might be the most important thing you do, because Christmas is when the shame is loudest, when the comparisons are most painful, when the loneliness feels most like proof of failure. So this year, instead of listening to the shame, talk back to it. Out loud if you can. Write it down if that helps. But do not let it run unopposed. Challenge it. Question it. Replace it with truth. And do that as many times as it takes until the shame starts to lose its power and compassion starts to take root. Now we get to the part you have been waiting for. The practical tools. The concrete actions you can take right now, this week, to protect your emotional health during Christmas without needing a perfect family, a perfect partner, or a perfect life. These are not vague suggestions like just be positive or practice gratitude. These are specific, psychologically grounded practices that will change how you experience not just Christmas, but your entire relationship with yourself, with solitude, and with boundaries. I am going to give you 7 tools, and I want you to choose one, just one, the one that feels most urgent, and commit to practicing it this week. The first tool is radical honesty about what you actually want. Most women over 50 have spent so many decades prioritizing everyone else's needs that they have completely lost touch with their own desires. Someone asks, "What do you want to do for Christmas?" And you freeze. You genuinely do not know. Your automatic response is to ask what everyone else wants and then arrange your life around that. But underneath all that conditioning, there is a real woman with real preferences, and she has been ignored for too long. So do this exercise right now. Imagine there were no rules, no obligations, no judgments, no one to disappoint. If you could design Christmas exactly the way you wanted, with zero regard for what anyone else thinks, what would it look like? Would it be quiet and alone with a book? Would it be a simple meal with one close friend? Would it be volunteering? Would it be traveling somewhere new? Would it be skipping Christmas entirely? There is no wrong answer. Write it down. Because naming what you want, even if you cannot have it this year, is an act of reclaiming yourself. The second tool is boundary setting. This is non-negotiable. You have to start saying no. No to obligations that drain you. No to gatherings that leave you feeling invisible. No to people who treat you like a function. No to performing happiness when you feel sad. Start small if you need to. No, I cannot host this year. No, I am leaving early. No, I am not cooking for 15 people. Each no is a message to your nervous system that says, I matter. My needs matter. I am allowed to protect my peace. Walter Riso teaches that boundaries are not cruelty. They are self-respect, and self-respect is not optional. Every time you say yes when you mean no, you abandon yourself. You teach people that your limits do not exist. So practice the no. Write it down. Say it out loud. Role play it if you need to. And then use it, because your peace depends on it. Before we continue with the remaining tools, I need you to do something. If this video is helping you, if you recognize yourself in what I am saying, subscribe to this channel right now and turn on notifications. Because next week, I am going to release a video specifically about how to handle toxic family dynamics during Christmas without guilt. You are going to need that video. It is going to give you exact scripts, exact language, exact strategies for protecting yourself in difficult family situations. So do not miss it. Subscribe now, hit that bell, and let's continue with the rest of the tools. The third tool is grief permission. If you are experiencing grief loneliness, if someone you love is missing from this Christmas, you need explicit permission to grieve, not to get over it, not to move on, not to be strong, to grieve, fully, honestly, without apology. The culture wants you to be sad at the funeral and then fine a few months later. But grief does not work that way. Grief comes in waves. And holidays are tidal waves. So create a grief ritual. Light a candle for the person who is gone. Put their photo somewhere visible. Say their name out loud. Talk to them. Tell them you miss them. Cry if you need to. Write them a letter you will never send. Or create a completely new ritual that honors their memory in a way that feels true to you. The point is not to wallow. The point is to acknowledge, to say, this is real. This loss is real. This pain is real. And I am not going to pretend it is not. Walter Riso teaches that suppressed grief becomes chronic depression. But expressed grief, grief that is allowed to move through you instead of getting stuck, eventually softens. You do not stop missing them, but the unbearable pain becomes something quieter, something you can carry without it destroying you. So do not rush your grief. Do not apologize for it. Honor it. The fourth tool is solitude reframing. If you are experiencing physical loneliness, One of the most powerful shifts you can make is changing the story you tell yourself about being alone. Right now, your brain equates alone with abandoned, unwanted, failed. But that equation is not truth. It is conditioning. You were taught that a woman alone is a woman who failed. But that is cultural propaganda, not psychological reality. Solitude, when chosen and embraced, is not loneliness. It is freedom. It is peace. It is the space where you finally get to be yourself without performing for anyone. Some of the most emotionally healthy, spiritually rich, and powerful women in history spent significant time alone. Not because they were rejected, because they chose it. Because they recognized that solitude is where you meet yourself. And meeting yourself is the foundation of everything else. So this Christmas, if you are alone, experiment with reframing. Instead of, "This is proof I am unwanted," try, "This is space where I can finally breathe." Instead of, "Everyone else has someone," try, "I have myself, and that is enough." Instead of, "I am missing out," try, "I am free from performances and obligations." See what happens when you stop fighting the solitude and start exploring it, not as punishment, as possibility. Let me tell you about Linda. She is 64. Last year was her first Christmas completely alone, divorced, children out of state, parents gone. She dreaded it for weeks. But then she decided to try something different. She stopped apologizing for being alone and started designing a day that was entirely for her. She slept in, made her favorite breakfast, watched movies she loved, took a long walk, called one friend, journaled, went to bed early, no performance, no pressure, just presence with herself. And she told me, "It was the most peaceful Christmas I have had in 40 years. Not because it was perfect, because it was honest." The fifth tool is creating new rituals. If the old traditions are painful because they remind you of what you lost or what you never had, create new ones. Rituals that reflect who you are now, not who you were 20 years ago. Maybe that means a quiet morning with coffee, music, and journaling. Maybe it means volunteering at a shelter. Maybe it means cooking your favorite meal instead of the traditional one. Maybe it means taking a solo trip. Maybe it means inviting one trusted friend and creating a completely different kind of gathering. New rituals send a powerful message to your subconscious. They say, "My life did not end when the old rituals ended. I am still here. I am still creating. I am still capable of meaning and beauty." This breaks the false belief that the only valuable Christmas is the one that looks like a Hallmark movie. Beauty can exist in a quiet day. Meaning can exist in a small gesture. Joy can exist in a moment that does not look like anyone else's moment. You do not need permission from anyone to create new rituals. You do not need to explain them. You do not need to justify them. You simply decide, "This is what I am doing this year," and you honor that decision as sacred. Because it is an act of self-respect. An act of saying, "I matter enough to design a life that fits me, not a life that fits someone else's expectations." The sixth tool is self-compassion practice. This is the foundation of everything. You have to stop speaking to yourself with cruelty. Stop calling yourself pathetic for feeling lonely. Stop telling yourself you should be over it by now. Stop comparing yourself to other women and deciding you are less than. That voice, that critical internal voice, is not truth. It is internalized shame, and it is destroying you from the inside. Self-compassion means speaking to yourself the way you would speak to a dear friend, with gentleness, with understanding, with permission to be imperfect and still worthy of love. Practice this daily, especially during Christmas, when the loneliness hits, when the grief rises, when the comparison starts. Stop, breathe, put your hand on your heart, and say out loud, "I am here. I see you. I am not abandoning you. You are not alone. I am with you." Here is a script you can use when the shame voice appears. When it says, "You are alone because you are not good enough," answer back, "That is not true. I am alone because of circumstances, losses, and transitions. My aloneness says nothing about my worth." When it says, "You should be happy, it is Christmas," answer, "I am allowed to feel what I feel. My feelings are valid. I do not have to perform happiness." When it says, "Everyone else has it together except you," answer, "I am comparing my reality to other people's performances. That is unfair and untrue." This practice, repeated over time, rewrites your relationship with yourself, and that relationship determines everything else. You cannot experience peace in your external life if you are at war with yourself internally. So start with compassion. Start with gentleness. Start with the radical act of being on your own side. The seventh and final tool is connection without dependency. If you are experiencing existential loneliness or emotional loneliness, you need connection. But not codependent connection. Not connection where you disappear into someone else. Healthy connection. Connection where you are seen, heard, valued. Connection that nourishes instead of drains. This might mean reaching out to one friend and having a real conversation. Not small talk, real talk. "This is hard for me. I feel alone. I need to be honest." It might mean joining a group of women who are also navigating this stage of life. It might mean working with a therapist. It might mean reaching out to another woman you know is also struggling and saying, "Let's not do this alone. Let's be honest with each other." Walter Riso teaches that healthy relationships are built on authenticity, not performance. So stop performing. Stop pretending you are fine. Stop protecting everyone else from your reality. Start showing up as you actually are. Vulnerable, imperfect, real. The people who can handle that are your people. The people who cannot were never truly connected to you anyway. They were connected to the role you played. And losing those relationships is not loss, it is clarity. So here is where we are. You now understand the 5 types of loneliness. You understand why Christmas amplifies them. You understand the toxic beliefs that torture you. You understand the psychological roots in attachment, codependency, and fear of abandonment. And you have 7 concrete tools to start reclaiming your peace. This is not about making Christmas perfect. This is about making it honest, about making it survivable. And maybe, just maybe, making this the year you stop abandoning yourself. You cannot control who sits at your table. You cannot control who calls, who remembers, who shows up. But you can control how you show up for yourself. You can choose not to speak to yourself with cruelty. You can choose not to compare your reality with curated images on a screen. You can choose to treat this season as an opportunity to build a different relationship with solitude. One where solitude is not punishment, but a space where you meet yourself with kindness. You are not broken because Christmas is hard. You are not a failure because your life does not look like a greeting card. You are a woman in a difficult season of life that the culture refuses to honor. But we honor it here. We see it, we name it, and we give you the tools to navigate it with dignity. Your worth does not shrink because your table is smaller this year. You are enough. You are whole. And you are allowed to create a holiday that protects your heart instead of breaking it. Before you leave this video, I need you to do 4 things. First, go to the comments and type your number from earlier. Type 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5. Whichever type of loneliness is loudest for you right now. Your comment helps this video reach other women who need to hear this message. Second, choose one tool, just one, the one that felt most urgent, and commit to trying it this week. Write it down. Tell someone. Make it real. Third, subscribe to this channel if you have not already. Turn on notifications. Because next week, I am going to talk about how to set boundaries with toxic family members during the holidays without guilt. That video is going to give you exact scripts and strategies you can use immediately. You need that video, so make sure you do not miss it. Fourth, Share this video with one woman who needs it. Someone who is also struggling this season. Someone who feels invisible, lonely, or exhausted. Send it to her right now. Let her know she is not alone. That is how we build connection. Real connection. Not based on performance, but on honesty. You are not alone in this. Thousands of women are watching this video right now, feeling exactly what you feel. And together, we are rewriting the story. We are rejecting the cultural lie that says your worth depends on how many people show up to your Christmas. We are choosing honesty over performance, peace over pressure, boundaries over obligation, and self-compassion over self-abandonment. This Christmas, be gentle with yourself. Be honest with yourself. Be on your own side. And remember, you are enough, you are whole, and you deserve a holiday that honors your truth instead of demanding you perform someone else's fantasy. I will see you in the next video.